Are we live? Live.
Coming at you live.
We should do a live episode.
I know.
It basically is. You don't really edit it, do you?
Not really. Not much.
We just do one cut.
Single cut.
I like that. Raw.
Yeah, definitely raw.
But some people actually were saying that they wish the last episode was live so they could comment on your date. Could have been like asking you questions and telling you should have stopped.
I think about all the mistakes I made every day during that date.
But I think it's good. So awesome feedback. Everyone loved your content on it. So your like kind of rough night was everyone's entertainment.
Yeah, that's true. But then I'm just like, oh my God, I spent so much money for like zero payoff.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, that's what like dating is.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lot of trial and error, right? It's a lot of gaining experience along the way.
It does suck though. Like it sucks for guys because you have to like kind of pay for the date. And if it goes out, like for girls, you're just like, it's always like, go on dates, go on. If it doesn't work out, whatever, at least you get a free dinner. But like for guys, you gotta kind of have to pay for it.
Yeah, well, that's why I said, I think at your age, if you're like early 20s, college student, I don't think you really need to do a date. Like you said, I think you could do just come over my house and watch a movie, Netflix and chill.
Or just like coffee.
Or coffee, yeah.
Like coffee, or you go for like a drink. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or a group of friends. Like me and a couple of my friends are going here. Why don't you and a couple of your friends? And then you like do just hanging out.
Zane could be like, hey, me and a couple of my friends are rolling at noon if you want to come hang out.
He's not into, he doesn't want to do a jits trick.
No, I know. I'm joking because that's like, you know.
His whole life.
Yeah, if that's your whole life.
Pretty much.
You're not like really clubbing.
So I'm sitting here and I'm in like agony because for the first time since I think 2006, I went tanning. So we
it's like so embarrassing.
We're going away. We're going obviously to Vegas for your fight next week. And we're staying an extra day. We're going to go to a pool party, have a nice day planned. But I was like fluorescent white, like painfully white, because I haven't been like outside in like 10 months.
Yeah.
Right? Literally, I haven't been outside in, since October. So maybe 6 months. But so I wanted to get like a little bit of a base coat. So I went tanning. First time I've been in a tanning bed since 2006. And I got completely fucking cooked. Like she was pretty lax about it. I was like, how long do you think I could do? They're like, well, this isn't the strong bed. So I'll set it for 12 minutes. And then if you feel yourself getting burnt, you get out. I mean, I didn't really feel myself getting burnt, but I didn't sleep 1 second last night because I tanned naked and I just put like a towel over my front and like my butt got like completely fried. So last night, like laying in bed, I was just in agony.
You were like, oh my God. And I like,
it was the worst sunburn I ever got.
I'd like wake up and like look over. I'm in so much pain. I'm cold. I'm this sunburn. I'm like, what? I know. Like I went too.
But I was like freezing cold, but then you're super hot. You're like cooking, but you get freezing cold.
Yeah.
Like, what is that?
I was like, well, maybe you should put a sweatshirt on.
I did. I put a like sweatpants and a sweatshirt.
That helps.
I was like hot.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
But yeah, like you literally said to me today, like you have no idea what I'm experiencing. I said, Kyle, I went in the same bed for the same amount of time and I'm burnt too.
I don't feel like you're burnt. Like, look at my arms.
Well, you
I'm
can't
like
see
really
it.
burnt.
Well, the thing is, like, I'm like super crazy now about skincare. So that's my whole thing. I used to, go to tanning salon when I was younger all the time. And then now I'm like, no, it's not good for you. But I'm like, all right, I want to get a little bit of color before the fight. And I also don't want to burn when we go out in the Vegas heat. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to go a couple times, but I completely cover my face. Like I put the towel over my face so my face isn't getting tan. I'm like, I do like all this like laser and like skincare stuff. So like, I don't want to like, if I'm paying for that, it doesn't make sense to go in a tanning bed for my face, my body. I'm like, whatever. I could just use like self tanner on my face. So I was good. Same thing. And I'll tell you what, the girl there though, definitely.
She didn't make it seem like it was like a risk of getting burned.
Yeah. And Like usually I think from when I used to go, they always are cautious. Like they're like, it's 10 minutes, but if it's your first time, only go 3 minutes or only go 4 minutes. And I'm like, all right, well, like,
that's what I was used to. I was like, oh, this must be a weak bed.
And she's like, oh, well, this is like the lowest bed. So you're fine. She's like, it's 12 minutes if you want to get out at 10. And I'm like, okay. And I felt fine, but I'm definitely burnt.
Yeah, I'm in agony, sitting here in complete fucking agony.
Yeah. But it's funny how when you go into a tanning salon, though, like, I mean, they have not changed since the early
It feels like an early 2000 vibe.
As soon as you walk in,
the way it smells,
it looks like
it's always the same girl at the front of the desk.
Yeah, always like texting the whole time, or like they have a friend sitting there, and it's just so funny because it's like you walk in and right away it's like I'm like I feel like I'm in 2006.
Yes.
Like I feel like I'm in high school right after I just got my car. I'm going. Like that was the cool thing to do. Like after I'm like driving to the tanning salon. That's exactly what I felt. But yeah, we're on our tanning journey. So we got like a week till I leave for the fight. It's like a week unlimited, but you can't go today.
I definitely cannot go today.
Yeah, but I think it's okay. You still
like I taught wrestling last night right after, but I feel like I didn't.
It takes a little bit.
Didn't like hurt. But today I couldn't wrestle today.
Yeah, last night we went like yesterday afternoon, and then last night when I got out of the shower, I was like, "Ooh, I'm red." I was like, I didn't feel it, but I could see it. And then this morning, I was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, painful.
But hopefully, you can push through, and you'll get through this.
Well, I'm usually tanning is a huge part of my life, but I'm always at the beach. Like in the summer, I'm dark.
Yeah,
like, people know me. I'm dark in the summer, but I'm at the beach all day.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a gradual, but you always get burned in the beginning. The first time we have a big
this.
beach,
this is the worst burn I've ever had.
Well, because your butt, usually you have. I think maybe next time you should just put some underwear on.
Wear underpants.
Wear underpants in the tanning bed.
I wasn't sure. It's been so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was uncomfortable.
Yeah, it still is. I think you'll get through it though. I trust you.
So yesterday you had a little rant about the door-to-door salespeople.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like this for everyone, like that. But when I lived in New Jersey, it never happened. But since we've lived here, all the time, door-to-door salesmen come up. Usually like solar panels. That's usually the main thing. Different companies too, and they come up, and it's like always in the middle of the day, and I'm like, ugh. They see my car's there or like the door's open, so I can't ignore them. And I hate confrontation. And they're always so nice. They're usually younger, the people that come up. And I just feel bad for them because to have to go up to someone's door, I'm sure people are like assholes to them and yell at them. And I feel so bad for them. So like, I don't want to be like, cut them off like you do on the phone. If someone calls you on the phone, you're like, don't call me. Boom. Right. But when you see them face to face, it's totally different. And I hate confrontation. So, like, usually my go-to is I just tell them, oh, this is my brother's house. Because if I say husband, then they'll come back. I said, oh, I'm house sitting. I don't even live here. I don't know. Or I'll say like, oh, I don't know, my husband. I'm not allowed to make any decisions. That's my husband, and he works all the time, so he's never home. And so they came yesterday, and you were home, and I wasn't, and you said. You blamed it on me.
Well, I blamed it on you. I do the same thing. I was like, oh, I got to run it by my wife.
Yeah. Well, she came back last night. Last night, it was like 6:30 too. But I had my door open. So she knocked on the door. Pablo ran to the door. So I didn't know. And she's like, oh, you must be the wife that's in charge of the house. I was like, motherfucker. Ugh. She was like the sweetest girl. She has like from Tennessee, has like the little accent. She's going through she's for pest control. And I'm like, damn, this girl's like, it's raining out. She's walking door to door. I felt so bad. And I'm like, how am I going to say no? Like, fuck. And then I was like, came out to being like, she's like, oh, it's like $200. And I'm like, all right, I mean like $200. Like sometimes we get like some ants. So like,
yeah.
She's like, and it controls all. I'm like, I've never seen a mouse here. We live like, I don't know. Our house is lifted. I don't, but whatever. So then I'm like, all right, fine. She's like, our technician's at a house across the street. We can come He can come in an hour. I'm like, what time is he gonna be here? I'm like, I just got home from training. Like, I'm like, I wanted to go shower, fold laundry, but now I gotta wait till this guy comes and show him around the house. But whatever, it's my fault. I should have just had the balls to say no. Like, I don't want it, which probably most houses do say that. And whatever, I said yeah. So then the technician guy comes and I'm like, all right, here we go. So I'm waiting in the garage and he's like, oh, just hold on, I'm on the phone. I'm like, all right, this guy's kind of an asshole. Like, I'm like, so I'm standing in the garage waiting because I know as soon as I go in the house and he's like gonna come. So whatever, he comes and I'm like, all of a sudden I was like, I don't feel bad telling the girl was like super sweet. I was like, I don't feel bad telling this guy no. But then I was like, oh, I'm going to get out of this. I already said yes, but I'm getting out of it. The guy comes, but then he was like, okay, here, just sign this 12-month contract. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wait, it's $200, right? And he's like, yeah, it's $200. And then, but we come 4 times through the year. That's $800. So I was like, oh, $800. I was like, oh, no, never mind. I was like, my husband will not fly with, that will not fly with him. So now I'm reversing it back to you. And the guy was cool. He was like, okay, whatever. He's like, well, we have your information, so, call us if you change it. He's like, you want to think about it? I was like, yeah. In my head, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it for, you know. So then he left. But then the girl, like, texts me, because now she has my information. She goes, hey, the technician said he was there. What's the issue? I'm like, don't text me. It's like, at this point, it's like almost 9 o'clock. I'm like, how did I get stuck in this? Like,
did you text her back?
No, I didn't text her back. And then the company texted me like 3 times today. I'm going to get emails and calls now because now they have my information, but at least I could just ignore them. But now I'm in my house and I'm scared that she's going to come back today to the house and I'm going to have to confront her. And she's going to be like, well, you told me you were going to do it. I'm like, oh, I don't know why. I just don't like that. And the fact that, first of all, I feel like there's way more convenient ways for marketing these days. It's like 2022. Why are you going door to door? But obviously it works because they still do it.
I mean, I guess you like pressure people, but I would think that it's such like an inefficient way to solicit business. I would think just like direct to consumer online marketing, like through, sponsored ads on Instagram or Facebook.
Yeah.
That is like infinite. Like you could hit every single person in a specific area and they're definitely going to see it. The knocking on people's doors, I can't believe that is still a thing.
And they always come in the middle of the week, during the day. Like, now we're usually home, but we don't have like regular jobs. Like most people, like on our street, when I'm home during the day, there's no one on our street is home during the day. Everyone like works 9 to 5s. So I'm like, why are you even coming at this time? But it's just, the thing is, to me, it almost like gets me mad because I'm like, now I'm uncomfortable in my own, you're coming to my house and I'm uncomfortable. I guess everyone could be like, well, you just say, no, I'm not interested. But then I'm like, now I feel like an asshole.
I'm definitely okay with too, just if someone's like ringing the doorbell or
you won't answer.
I'm okay with not answering it.
I just feel like they can like see me.
Yeah, but who cares?
Yeah.
You don't have to answer it.
Yeah. I guess right? I could like go on the ring and be like, because what if I was
I have COVID.
I know. As soon as they left, I was like, I should have said that.
I have COVID.
So then the guy leaves and I come home and then I'm like, go upstairs. I'm like in our room, like folding laundry, and I hear the fucking doorbell ring. And I was like, this girl fucking came back. And I looked and I'm like, oh, I was so pissed. And I looked, but it was USADA. They came for a drug test.
That's
I was
annoying
like,
too.
Oh my God. I'm like, oh, it's like, it was like, I got home from training at like 5 and I'm like, wow, it's 5 p.m. and I have nothing to do for the rest of the night. I can relax. And I was just like, all like anxiety up.
When the USADA people were there this time, did they wear a mask?
Mm-hmm.
Both? The whole time wear a mask?
Yeah, I think they're just kind of scared of COVID.
Yeah.
The guy just is recovering from COVID. And
they love masks, the USADA people. I remember the one time, I'm never here when they come, but one time I was, and they were like said something like, put a mask on. I was like, no,
I'm
not putting a mask on.
They told me like once, and they're like, oh, can you, they didn't like, they were kind of nice about it. Cause I mean, I know the guy that comes here is like the same guy for years. So I kind of know him, but he's like, oh, do you mind with the mask? I was like, no. I was like, I'm not doing it in my house. I'm not putting a mask on. Sorry.
Yeah, come back.
You can come back later or whatever. Yeah.
Come back after COVID.
Yeah. Because I mean, like, or I guess maybe if they came to the gym and then asked, then
maybe.
maybe then I would be more apt to, because I'd be like, okay, it's a public, like, but my own house, if I'm not wearing one.
That's funny. So,
yeah.
So you were bothered yesterday.
Yeah. The USADA people, I'm always a little like, ugh. I know it's like their job and they're nice, but it's like, then I have to like put Pablo in a cage because the woman, so the guy comes to test, but since I'm a girl, he has, a woman has to be there because they have to like go in the bathroom and watch you pee. So, and of course they came and I like had to wait, drink water. And then it's like, 9:00 at night. So then I do my thing. I barely had enough. And then a second they leave. Now I'm peeing all night because I just chugged like 50 ounces of water while they were here. But that's crazy. Like with the USADA, like it's
very intrusive.
Yes. And like they come, I mean, no matter what, you have to do it. If they would have came last night and I was like, oh, I decided to go visit my parents, like I would have got a missed test.
Right.
I mean, granted, people don't know this. You are allowed like up to like 3 miss a year.
Yeah. So but it's definitely, it's an inconvenience for sure.
Yeah. For a while, the guy would always come on. This was the first time he didn't. And I think because he was out for so long, because I was thinking, I'm like, I haven't gotten tested this whole camp. That's weird. But he got COVID in the middle of it. So that's probably why. So then I was like, they know I'm leaving in a week. So they're probably like, you have to hurry up and test her.
Because you have to get tested before every fight?
Yeah. I mean, they usually do. It seems like if you don't fight at all, you probably get tested at least, it could be more, but you get tested quarterly. And then if you have a fight, and then they'll kind of, it seems like, lot. Yeah. I mean, You've had a lot of tests. Yeah, I've definitely had it over 30. I mean, that's a lot, Some people get the 50 mark, and then that's like we can get like a t-shirt or something.
Oh, yeah. You don't have one yet?
I got a t-shirt at 25. Oh. That was a while ago. But it sucks. The guy always comes Sunday morning at like 7 a.m. I'm like it's almost not as bad when I'm in camp. Because I'm like, all right, it's like a work day. But when I'm not in camp and it's 7 a.m. and you come on a Sunday, I'm like, come on a Monday that's like a work day. He's like, oh, I don't want to bother you when you're at the gym. I'm like, dude, like, sometimes I'm like hungover. I'm like, I was like watching, like, there was one time he came and I was so sick. I wasn't like not hungover. I was sick. I had like a fever, and they were like, and he's
I remember that.
Super nice, but super talkative. Talks about everything, and he kind of like talks about like all the other fighters that he tests. I'm like, isn't this supposed to be a little like
confidential?
Yeah. The girl I like when I was in Jersey, I had a girl there. I was like cool with her. She was cool. This guy's super nice, but I'm just like, if you're coming over at 9 at night, I don't like, let's just get this over with.
Right.
Yeah.
So Zane, no more dates?
Just a tiny bit of a break.
What happened? You said you had something happen at your jiu-jitsu club. You're the Stony Brook jiu-jitsu coach now.
Yeah, so that club's kind of crazy. That's where Eddie first started doing jiu-jitsu.
Eddie Cummings.
Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Eddie Cummings,
I knew
John
that.
Tatava, all those guys started training over there first.
Wow.
And so I like kind of came in one day, and it's funny. The kid that invited me to the club, we actually had to kick him out because he tried to start a fight at the club.
Oh my God.
Like he was like coming up to like boys and girls and trying to fight them.
Like,
and this is
fist fight?
Like a fist fight, yeah.
This is at your college if people don't know.
Okay. And then what happened?
And so I guess we just end up kicking him out, but like this other kid that came by, he's like the president of like the MMA club. And so
they have an MMA club?
They do.
Jesus.
Damn.
Yeah, they have all sorts of clubs over there. It's
and
wild.
they have I know they have boxing, right?
Yeah, they do. It's like pink gloves boxing. I don't know what that means.
Because my when I went for my eye doctor appointment, he's the eye doctor was like, my son boxes at Stony Brook. I was like, really? I'm like, are you sure? I was like kind of thinking he was like lying.
Yeah, I mean, anyone doing like sports at school isn't really like,
Yeah, but still to do like boxing and jiu-jitsu at all.
Yeah.
So what happened with this guy?
So I'm like teaching class, and like I like some homework to do after. So I'm like kind of just like going through the moves, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna roll live, guys. Like I'm gonna be off on the side doing homework. Grab me if you need me. And this guy like comes up to me, like he like blocks my path to my locker. Like he like gets up in my face. He's like, you must roll with me.
So you must
roll with me.
Is he trying to be like funny?
No, he was 100% serious.
Was he a big guy?
No, he
Little
was
guy.
like my size.
So what'd you say?
And I was like, okay, sure, dude. Because like I want to set a good example for the club. You know, like I don't want to like deny a role.
Called out.
Yeah. So I go there and like I just go on my back and I'm like, all right, let me see what this guy got. And like he's trying to pass and he just can't pass my guard.
Any
And
technique, like, or
no, not at all. Like at one point he tried like a cartwheel pass, but like, he like fell flat on his face.
Oh my god!
I was like, oh my god, are you okay? He's like, I'm just getting started. I'm like,
oh, so he's like
okay.
an insane person.
Yeah, and so like he's still trying to pass my guard, and he just keeps talking the entire time. He's like making like Snyder marks. He's like, haha, I see what you're doing here. I was like, oh really? Like I'm not really doing much of anything.
So did you fuck him up?
I tapped him like 4 times in a minute.
Oh my god!
Leg locks?
No, just like a tripod sweep, took his back, choked him out,
Oh my
guillotine, armbar, and I was like, hey man, like I really gotta do my homework right now. Like, can we like do this another time? And like at first she was like, no, let's go again. I'm not done yet.
Oh
I was
my
like,
gosh.
But people don't understand, like your effort or your intensity. It does. If you don't know what you're doing in a sport like jiu-jitsu, it means nothing. You're not gonna. He's not gonna all of a sudden start fucking you up by like spazzing out more or trying harder.
And so
it's you don't have the technical ability to do anything.
No, I
How would he
100%
beat
agree.
you?
Like that's like me when I go at Jason. Like it doesn't matter how hard I go.
Right.
Like, I'm just gonna,
Your effort doesn't matter.
I'm just gonna like die eventually.
Mhm.
Right.
And so like after that, he goes to like this D1 wrestler that I teach from like another school. He used to wrestle D1, and he's like talking him up too, but he's not as nice as I am. So he like double legs him off the mat.
Yeah.
Like, and he's like, at this point, this kid's confidence is shot. So
That's
after he
good.
gets double legged, he just like starts walking around on the other side of the mat, just like back and forth, like back and forth. At one point, he like
doesn't know
walks
what
to
to
the
do with
bathroom with like his shoes off and tries to come back on the mat. I'm like yelling at him. I'm like, that's like so disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know, just a weird vibe. We ended up like making sure he never comes back, but
How'd you do that?
we just put like a ban on him. Like if anyone sees him, we're like, yeah, you just can't come in.
Wow.
It's just weird. I feel like some kids like take, I don't know, jujitsu and like sports too seriously.
And I think at like a school, it's a little like
It's
a
not like a
school
real club, right?
It's a little bit different. Like at any gym, there's someone's like you can't. There's rules.
Right.
Like I'm sure there's rules there, but like there you can just
college.
be like,
I hate college, and I hate college kids.
I do too.
So
I do too.
So that makes sense.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine. Like I'm thinking in like when I was in college, if they had like a jujitsu club, I'm like, I don't even think that would work.
But like it is a thing because college kids sometimes think that they're tough. Like college guys will go out and be tough, but
'Cause
at a
that's their
jiu-jitsu school,
circle.
you're allowed to beat the person up.
Yeah.
So if you go in there and act like a tough guy, like a frat jack tough guy, you could go in there and get fucked up by someone who
Like
knows
by
a
like
little-
some small
or a
girl.
small girl, like someone who knows a little bit of jiu-jitsu. So that's why like the tough guy culture like doesn't really flow. It's not super common in jiu-jitsu because you're instantly humbled.
Yeah. I've had tons of like bigger guys come in and like try to like muscle me.
Like college guys.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
big
Like, they have
fat
no
dudes with,
intentions
like,
of, like-
giant biceps or like, yeah, dude, like you're like kind of scrawny for like a professor, aren't you? I'm like, whatever, man.
Like, what do you? Even if you like, what do you care? You know,
Yeah.
people are so
Well, what do
weird.
they think? Professors are all jacked?
I
or
think
big,
they all
or-
just, I think they think I'm like a lot better than I am. Cause like I'm like
teaching.
teaching. Like they don't know that I'm a blue belt.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm just like a random blue belt. Just
But
teaching.
like you say, you're like they think you're better than you are, but your level compared to them,
They
is
can't
like,
even grasp your level.
They would. They'll probably
Yeah.
never. No one in there will probably ever get to your level in their life.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they like move on and start training at a real academy and like
Yeah.
for years later. But it's just crazy, especially like we always talk about it with that.
Perspective. We always talk about this.
Yeah, especially in MMA, but in jiu-jitsu, it's like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's so insane.
Like I
I've-
still have a couple buddies that are like construction guys, and they still think like, oh, this guy I work with, he's a monster. He could, lift 6 boards on his back. He could fuck up anybody. He's a monster. I'm like, no, dude.
It doesn't work like
He's
that.
not- that's like my dad used to say stuff like that too. Like think his friends are like tough guys
because they're like strong.
or like bikers or something. I'm like, no. If you're not like training like real Muay Thai, real boxing, real wrestling, or jujitsu, one of those 4 things, you have no chance of defending yourself against someone who does.
Who does? Yeah.
Things.
Maybe if you go against some other like some person that doesn't train and they're just
like a football player and
yeah.
you're like a tough guy.
Yeah, maybe, but maybe not, because maybe the football player
probably knows how to tackle
you. Yeah, it's so crazy. It's I think on Long Island, New York, like the whole tri-state area is like there's a lot of like tough guys, and I'm like
not as many as it used to be.
No,
like,
but still, the fact that there are the fact that there are those like quote unquote tough guys that are not okay. If you're like over 50, you have an excuse. If you're under 50, like you got to understand that people are trained now. Like,
well, I think I've mentioned this before too, is that those are the 4 martial arts that work: Muay Thai, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. In my opinion, those are the 4 that work. But there's still people that are around that actually train like something like, I've talked about this before on the podcast, that train like Krav Maga. And they'll say things like, well, my sensei, he could beat any of these guys. He'd kill him, but they would never let him in the UFC because the people he competed against would die. It's too much of a liability. I'm like, no, I don't think that's true.
But they believe
no, they
that.
really, really believe that. And so
that's insane.
I think that
brainwash.
Those senseis must paint the picture that they really can do that.
Yeah.
But
it's like, don't you have the internet?
They're losing out on millions and millions and millions of dollars. If you could beat anyone in the world, you'd have like all the belts.
If like some little like sensei at some like Krav Maga gym can beat Conor McGregor and Francis Ngannou, like maybe he should be making a better financial decision.
Yeah, it's a poor financial decision. But there are people that still don't get that. Like I can't even wrap my head around that, because maybe we're so submerged in like MMA
and like a high level
and stuff, like you understand like, well, everyone does this, but if you don't train one of those things, you have no ability to defend yourself, to to beat anyone in a fight that does one of those 4 things.
I can't imagine. I'm not saying, I understand that like jiu-jitsu is a very hard sell for girls. I get it totally. But and I'm not saying you should do it to be a fighter, to compete, but the fact that like most girls don't train jujitsu, like I would be so scared. I mean, I'm like at the top of the sport of fighting at all different levels, like, or all different styles of fighting, but like I'm still like kind of like, if like I was like, if a guy tried to attack me, I'm not like, oh, I'd fuck him up. You know what I mean? So like, what do like most girls think? They must be, I couldn't imagine being like that scared all the time. Not that maybe you're not in those situations, but like, you don't know. What if you're just like walking in a parking lot? I mean, that stuff happens all the time,
Sure.
Or even like, I always think for like, girls that are like in college going out. I remember like I would be bartending in Hoboken. We park on the street like at the end of the night. That was like a big thing. Like bartenders, when they leave the places, would get robbed because everyone knew, they have cash on them. And it's like after all the bars are closed and stuff. And I remember being like putting like and nothing ever happened, but I'd be like a little nervous walking. I was in a nice area. Yeah. I think it's like so crazy. It should, that like girls don't train a little bit. I mean, it's hard to say. It's just because you train, you're not gonna.
I think you have to get, for a girl to be able to defend themselves against like a guy, they have to get to a pretty high level.
Yeah, I think like jiu-jitsu, you have to be like brown or black.
I think so.
Which is like super hard.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, take a couple self-defense classes, because that won't do it.
But I think there is something to be said, like when the more you learn and kind of know, even though you might in like a life-threatening type of situation, you might not be able to defend yourself. But I think there is some type of confidence that you carry when like, especially if you're a small girl, if you can like at least roll with like guys that are bigger in the gym, you're kind of just a little bit more confident where you're not as intimidated by guys. Because there are some people that are like super intimidated.
But that confidence thing is so funny. Like the guy who's challenging you, Zane, like how does someone like that have confidence? Like, why would they think
it's definitely
that they
something
could
wrong with them?
There's something wrong with them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's
some type of like mental disorder,
'cause
like delusion.
Confidence is such a weird thing because there are people who are like really good and like world class that struggle because they don't have confidence.
Mhm.
But then there's people who off the street, like no training whatsoever, have confidence. Imagine if he trained, maybe he'd be super good.
Yeah.
With that
It's
type
definitely
of
like some
self-belief
sense of
and
like
confidence.
delusion.
Mhm.
I don't have the opposite of that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I feel like when you first walk into a gym, like everyone's super confident. Like
You think?
when I first walked into jiu-jitsu gym, like after like wrestling for 4 years, I was like, oh yeah, like I'm gonna fuck everyone up. I got like guillotined and triangled like 10 times my first round ever.
Well, you had some experience before. I think that's a little bit
Yeah.
different if you have a
Yeah.
little bit of experience. I think people that have never, like if you've wrestled, because I think wrestling, you're always just like, well, if I wrestle, like jiu-jitsu is easy. Like, I don't know. You look at wrestling, everyone looks like big and strong. And then you look into a jiu-jitsu gym, you're like, all right, there's like,
Right.
look at this, like small people, there's girls, there's old people, there's fat people. And you're just kind of like, they don't look like scary. And then they like tap you a million times.
Right.
Yeah. It's a weird thing, like in jujitsu when they start off, like when you're like, someone doesn't know anything at the end, you show a couple technique at the end of class, like, all right, go live. The weirdest thing, for some reason, this is the biggest difference I see with guys and girls that train jujitsu. Guys are like, let's go. They know no moves. You learned one move in class, which you don't know. Like, you know no moves, and you'll go as hard as you can live. And I'm like, but girls, it's the opposite. Every time the instructor's like, just go, you'll figure it out. And they're like, wait, what? They're like, they're the opposite. That doesn't like, they don't have like that natural aggression where it's just like, oh, just try to grab someone's head. They're like, they always like, I always feel bad for a new girl. And they're like, oh, just go live. You'll figure it out as you go. And they're like, I don't know what to do. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, what do you want me to do? Like, but for guys, they'll just like go as hard as they can. I'm like, what are you going for?
Yeah, what's your plan?
Yeah, it's just
They
to
just
go.
Squeeze their head.
Squeeze their head. Sometimes it works though.
Yeah. But yeah, that weird confidence is crazy.
I always say, I was talking about this today with Sarge, and like, you know, we hate when we go into like a jujitsu class and there's like a guy that's like lower level and they're like, oh, you're in the UFC, right? I'm like, yeah, but just chill. Like, as soon as someone that says, like, you're in the UFC, right? Right before a live go, and I don't know the person, I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm like, this guy's gonna try to, it's like a nervous thing. They think they're not trying to, like, beat you, but they're trying to, like be a good feel, and, like,
Right.
they think you're gonna, like, I'm like, what do you think? I'm gonna like punch you or something? And they go so much harder. I'm like, go with me the same way you went with all the other girls. Like, don't, because I'm in the UFC, you're gonna like try to take my head off with no moves that you know.
Right.
But I'm picky now. I'm like such a brat when it comes to jiu-jitsu. Like, I don't train with anyone that makes me like feel like.
Well, you shouldn't.
Not so, one, because all right, it's my profession. I can't get hurt. But even if it's someone that I like, but I'm like, I just don't get a good roll with you, or they go a little hard and they're a little spazzy, but I like the person. They'll be like, come on, want to roll? I'm like, no, like, something about our rolls together. You're a little spazzy and like, I like you, but you know, that happens to me all the time. This is the worst when guys, they're like, oh, want to train? I'm like, no, I'm like, I got a fight coming up. I'm just going with smaller people. They're like, I'll go light. I'm like, first of all, I am 1,000 times better than you. So don't try to like, you know what I mean? Act like that. And I'm like, no, like once someone says no, it's just, that's it.
Yeah. Don't sell me.
Guys do that all the time because they want to go with like the girls in the training because they want to not sit out around and they want to get a round off. So they'll want to go with the girls all the time. It's not even necessarily like a creep. Sometimes people are creepy, but it's not a creepy thing. They just want to like avoid going with the guys, or it's competitive and they can go with the girls and it's an easy round, but they're not sitting out. So no one can see them resting.
Right.
So, but whenever I say, I'm like, no, they're like, come on, I'll go light. I'm like, are you convincing me to like,
yeah, that's not going to work.
It's weird. I tell all the new girls, I'm like, if you don't want to go with someone, because I see new girls will be going with guys. I'm like, why do you train with that person? The girls will be like 120 pounds, like soaking wet, like don't know anything. I'm like, why do you roll with that person? I'm like, I don't roll with them. I'm like, they're too intense. She's like, oh, really? I don't know. I feel bad saying no. I'm like, why? If you say no, sometimes the guys feel uncomfortable that they asked you and don't ask you again.
Yeah, it's okay to say no. I
Yeah.
think it's good to say
I'm
no.
a big promoter of like, just tell people the guys no.
Yeah. But this weekend there's some UFC fights. It was one of those cards where like, it's not that good of a card, but I thought there were some really good fights.
Mhm.
The one fight is Jared Gordon versus Davy Grant. I think it's Davy Grant. But I was super impressed with Grant.
Yeah.
Because Gordon is like super well-rounded. He's
Yeah.
like very good striking, very good jiu-jitsu, very good takedown defense, good takedowns. He's like a pretty high-level grappler, but that Davy Grant forced the wrestling so much and got on top of him, really controlled him really well. He had his back, like body triangle the whole time. And it just got me thinking, like, because I watched like 3 weeks in a row. It was like Aljo. Then I watched the Bellator tournament, that kid Patchy Mitch.
Yes.
Or Patchy Mix. And now Grant. And they locked the guy into a body triangle, 2 rounds.
Yeah.
All 3 of those guys had 2 full rounds on the back. And getting that body triangle, I think it's like important that's a position that people don't really train out of bad positions too often. And it's not a submission necessarily, because I don't see a lot of people getting submitted from there.
Right.
But you get caught in that, you lose the round. It's just like a wasted round.
And because it's not, even if the person's not submitting you, they can keep threatening like a couple punches, go for the choke, couple punches.
And they'll never stand you up.
And they won't stand you up, because if you're in guard and just holding, doing a couple punches, they might stand you up, or on the cage, but that position they don't. So it's like, when you're stuck in it, you got to get out. You know?
I think it's a pretty important position to train, to have like a real set, like go-to thing. Like, this is what I do when I get caught in this. And it's tough. It's very hard to get out. And the guys, you're probably not going to get out of Aljo or that Patchy Mix. They're very good at that. But I think it's something that a bad position that you need to train your way out of. Just like, it's almost worse than like mount, because mount, you could just like buck your way out, like just go hard, and
there are more options too. Right. And it's not just locked in. And mount, they're going for, anytime they like go for punches or try to go for a choke, there's opportunity to off balance them, or
But I feel like, I mean, even just in my experience, like I've drilled like mount escapes like hundreds of times, done like live goes starting for mount, but I feel like I've never really haven't done a ton of training on like beating the body triangle.
I think too, you don't.
I mean,
we don't practice a lot because not a lot of people can do the body triangle.
Right.
So to show a whole class, hey, we're drilling body triangle stuff, a lot of people can't even, their body types can't even lock the.
Right.
So you can't really drill it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right about that.
Because we do a lot of back escapes.
Right. But that's a little different though. Like hooks in, that everyone has some.
Because everyone can do it. Not everyone can do the body lock, but then when people can do it, then it sucks, Do
you have some answers out of that body triangles in?
Body triangle?
Yeah.
I mean, like me personally, like I have to drill that like almost every day for EBI.
Because
when someone has a body triangle on you from the back?
Yeah.
Are you good at that escape?
I think it's most people my level I can get out.
Yeah.
Yeah, like when Jason or Anthony like puts a body triangle on me, like from my gym, like they're like both black belts, very good, very amazing. Like I'm kind of dead.
Yeah.
It sucks because it's like one of those things that some people are good at it. Like it's hard to get out. I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah, but
if I get a body triangle,
you're very good.
If I get a body triangle on like an MMA girl, they're probably not getting out.
Not getting out.
You know who's got the best body triangle escapes I've ever seen? Fabian.
Really? Oh yeah.
Some people are really good. Some people are just good at escaping.
Really good at it.
Fabian's gone out of like almost everyone's body triangle. I don't think anyone's ever held him for more than like a minute.
Wow.
Why? Because they start with that in EBI? No.
They start with the back.
Sitting up and then they transition to that, right?
Yeah. But he's like got against some like pretty big names, like that kid Damien from B Team. Like he's gone out of his body triangle a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at high level, yeah.
But as an MMA fighter, I think that's something that you have to have that skill, because it sucks to lose around like that.
It sucks because you're like,
you're not taking damage.
Yes, you're there. You're like, all right.
There's not a lot of effort on either guy.
It's extremely frustrating because you're like, all right, I know I'm not really getting. You don't always know that, but a lot of times okay, I'm not getting. It was with Peter Yan. You saw it. Like, I'm not getting choked, but I can't get out. So
and he definitely lost those rounds.
Yeah,
but
So you're just like waiting for the clock
Frustrating.
to end so you could start again.
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
But this guy looked amazing on the back. Super impressed. And the weight class is interesting. Like there's several guys like that are outside like the top 15, but are like super high level. Like I could see him fight like Mark Madsen next, or I don't know. There's a lot of guys at that level that are really, really good. But I was really impressed with him.
Yeah.
Then Arlovsky and Collier. I thought that was amazing.
That was a really, really good fight.
They were like really trying to fuck each other up.
Mm-hmm.
That Collier, I mean, his body like looks kind of like out of shape. Like,
yeah.
Not super athletic, but he was athletic as fuck. His boxing,
he had
was
really
so
good
slick.
boxing, like slick. I'm like, oh, he trains real boxing, not
Real
like
boxing.
MMA gym where you're just hitting pads. Like he trains legit boxing.
Yeah, I was like
Or
really,
has.
really impressed. And he had a couple really good takedowns,
Mhm.
level change. He was good like clinching. And then at the end of the fight, and Arlovsky hit him back too. He was competitive. But then to the fight, I was like, oh, that was a really good win for Collier beating Arlovsky, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Then they announce it, and it was a unanimous decision, I think, for Arlovsky. Or no, you know what? It was a split decision, but a split decision for Arlovsky. And it just kind of reminded me, like I always talk about this, how I don't bet on fights.
Yes.
But you can watch, a lot of times you can watch an MMA fight. And if it goes to a decision, then there's a commercial break. If during the commercial break, someone was like, let's make a bet. Who do you think won that fight? Even after watching the fight.
Before you get to the judges.
Before you get to judges, I mean.
Sometimes it's harder then.
It's not like a lock that you would win that bet.
No.
After you see what happens.
Yeah.
You still would be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I'm completely wrong. At least one on every card. I'm like, that one was atrocious, I thought. But a lot of cards.
There was one fight back in the day when you used to bet. I think it was like Luque Vicente, maybe. I don't know who he fought or if it was even him. There was a fight where you bet on and you're like, oh, he won. And you actually bet on the fight. You went in the other room before they did the decision and you're like, wait, what? Was it him? I thought it was him.
Oh, no. It wasn't. It was Volkan Ostermir versus the guy Dominic Reyes. And Reyes ended up winning, but it was like not competitive.
You bet on the fight and you were so confident that you went into the kitchen before hearing the announcement. Yeah. And then we were like, wait, what? I think that was like towards the end of the betting era for you.
But even last week, there was the PFL fights, and our good friend, Chris Wade, he had a big win over two-time champion.
Our other good friend.
Lance Palmer, who's our other friend. But Chris Wade, I was watching, I was like, he's completely dominated this entire fight. He was, punches, kicks, forward pressure, everything dominating. And the announcers during the fight were like, I really don't know how they're going to score those first 2 rounds.
We were like,
they're not even kind of competitive. He didn't have a scratch on him. And then you go to the scorecards, if the announcers are saying that, like, how am I missing? What am I missing?
That happens. I mean, we watch so many fights, every fight card, all the fights every week. And every week there's like at least one, probably more fights where we're like, wait, that even the outcome of the decision, we're so confused. Or we listen to the commentating sometimes and we're like, wait, I'm almost like, do I not know MMA? Like, obviously I don't, but
yeah,
it's just crazy. That's why it's so hard. It's so hard to bet on fights, but also like I was talking to yesterday at the gym to Randy Brown about it. We were saying, we're like, it's so hard to win a fight.
So hard.
Like we were both saying, because we actually are both of our last amateur fights, we won like amateur titles on the same card. And we were talking about, he's like, even that, then the amateur career and even the early like pro, even early in the UFC, like we were both saying, we were like way more confident. It was almost like ignorance, like you don't realize, like we were just like, all right. And then you get like, to a certain, I think it gets harder because as you get better, you're at a higher level, and it's just like, there's never that many like mismatches, every fight's tough. And we're just saying, we're like, it's so hard to win a fight.
It
like
really is.
I mean, obviously you could be murdering someone and all of a sudden you have 4 ounce gloves on, you can get hit or get a slip and get a submission. You could be murdering someone. You're so much better than them. They
or
could
those bad decisions.
bad
too.
decisions.
You could do everything right, and the judge, no, you lost.
Or like you just do everything right. You feel so good, and then that day, it's just like, oh, for some reason, I don't know. I just feel slow today.
Yeah.
Now the other person doesn't, and you lose. It's just so. I know how hard it is to win a fight. So like when people bet on fights all the time, like, and I'm like, do you know how hard it is? Like, I mean, I guess if you bet on enough, and sometimes people are just betting like, $10, $20 on a fight, and it's just like,
yeah,
for fun, but it's crazy.
Yeah, if you bet on heavy underdogs, like you throw him $20, but he's 1,000 to 1 underdog.
Yeah, you don't really care. But then too, then on top of it, people go the extreme and they go, oh, I'm betting that this person wins by knockout in the 3rd round. I'm like, what? It's so hard to pick a winner, let alone how they're going to do it and when they're going to do it.
I think of that as like picking like a lottery number.
Yes. Yeah.
Like that's impossible.
Yeah.
But so that was a weird decision. Then the main event, Rob Font and Chito Vera, that was such an amazing fight.
Really good.
It was such an interesting fight too, because Font, like, if they were 3-minute rounds, he would have like
4 minutes.
4-minute rounds.
Mm-hmm.
He would have like dominated in record-setting fashion.
Yeah.
Like the amount of output that he put it in was insane. It was like over 100 strikes per round. But then at the end of every single round except the 5th, he was dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Like even at the end, you were kind of like, I don't know. He kind of dominates so much just because he got dropped. I don't know.
Because
like,
it wasn't like, I don't know. Some of
like,
them.
It could be 2-2 going into the 5th.
Yeah. And I'm sure I'm biased because I am like a Rob Font fan and I like him and I like watching him fight. But I was like, I don't know. Like he like just lit him up the whole time.
He did.
And then like one shot would land. So does he win that round? Like, I don't know. Obviously he does.
I mean, Rob Font took so much damage. Like that guy must hit like really fucking hard.
And accurate.
But it looked like Rob was hitting him so many times, but Chito Vera had not a scratch on his face.
The way the fight.
And Rob Font's face looked like he got beat with a baseball bat.
Yeah.
Like, I thought they should have stopped it.
Yeah. The way the fight played out, I thought Chito Vera's face should have looked like Rob Font because he was just that's why like it was halfway through the fight and I was like, wait, his face how does like Chito Vera's face not have a mark? I'm like, maybe not all these punches are landing, or even if they don't have power, you would still for that many punches your face would start to get marked up. And I was like, maybe a lot of these punches aren't hitting like I thought they were.
They must not have been.
Yeah, his face was crazy, but that was such a good fight,
such an insane fight.
And I think when we were watching that, if I remember correctly, in between rounds, it kind of looked like Rob Font's coaches were almost going to throw the towel in, right?
Yeah, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I think they said to him, they're like, do you still want to go? Yeah. I'm like, damn. I'm like, you don't hear that very often.
Not very often.
I mean, if I went to my corner, my coaches if they said that, like, do you want to keep going? Right away, I would say,
maybe not.
Well, now I don't. Yeah. Like, if my cornerman said that right away, I'm like, oh, it's bad.
It's bad. Yeah.
Like now, how am I gonna go in there to? Right. I think as a corner, I mean,
if you're gonna say that, you should really say you're done.
Exactly.
Don't do that. Kill their confidence and go out there.
Yeah, and I hate to criticize anything like people in their corners say because you don't know the relationship between the coach and the fighter and what they deal with and what works. Everyone's different. But I know for me, if the cornermen have to ask me, they should just make the decision. Don't ask me.
No fighter's gonna say, "Yeah, I don't want to go."
Yeah,
I don't think.
Yeah, I guess maybe if the coach was like, "I'm gonna call it," and they were like, "No, do not do that," then maybe that's a little different. But my coaches don't ask me. That's your decision, right? You know what I mean? I think that's
a really hard decision.
It's a very hard decision because no matter what, it's like. Especially in MMA, I think so more than boxing. In boxing, I think they do it a little bit more often.
But there's so many rounds, so you could be like, I'm down 7 rounds.
Yeah.
And I can barely swing. I'm not knocking him out.
Yeah. You're not, if you're really getting beat in boxing, there's less chances of getting like a knockout. But like in MMA, you could be like getting knocked out. It goes to the ground. You get submission if you're not landing, or just with the little gloves, it just takes one shot.
Yeah. But that was an incredible fight. That weight class is so crazy. There's like, I think I saw just yesterday, Chael Sonnen put something out that there's 8 fighters at bantamweight that have once had a UFC shit. 8 out
That's
of the top 10.
crazy.
But I was thinking, as playing matchmaker, I would love to see Cheeto Vera versus Sandhagen.
That's a good fight.
I think that is an amazing fight.
Yeah.
And I bet it will probably happen.
Yeah.
But that's
That
an
definitely
amazing,
makes
amazing
sense.
fight. I would love to see that.
Has Sandhagen fought since he fought Peter Yan?
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
But I think that's definitely going to be
That makes sense. I like that
this
fight.
summer, I would bet.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking also Vieira versus Merab would be a fun fight. But I think Merab, I heard,
He's fighting Dominic
Cruz. He's going to fight Dominic Cruz,
yeah,
right?
I think so.
That's crazy too. That's a
Mhm.
crazy fight. That's like the
Any
most
fight-
entertaining division.
Yeah, any fight any fight you make in 135 is I'm amped about. Like
Yeah.
so excited to watch any
Yeah.
way it goes.
It's definitely the most depth, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's probably the most depth.
Yeah.
Really, really fucking, really good. But yeah, so that was it for the fights. Then there was a boxing fight. Katie Taylor and Amanda Seriano. Did you hear anything about it or watch it?
I mean,
Highlights?
no. Well, it started after the fights. It started, and I was like, "Should we watch it?" I'm like, "It's so late," and I'm like, "This is gonna go probably the whole time." And boxing, like with the walkouts, I was like, "No, I'm not watching it." I mean, I saw like a few highlights. They're both so amazing. The highlights I saw, I was like, "Wow, these girls are
They're
really
going
good."
hard.
Yeah, they're both like.
Yeah.
I think those two girls are like way above everyone else. So like watching
So
them
they'll probably fight again.
yeah, I mean, I think it only makes sense to watch them. And I think Katie Taylor won. I saw a couple people saying like robbery. I don't know if it was or they just like that, but I think it was from what I gathered on my on Instagram. I think it was super competitive, so it would make sense to see a rematch. But yeah,
I didn't see it, and I didn't really care to see it, but it was a Jake Paul event.
mm-hmm.
And I saw on Robbie Fox's Instagram story, he's Barstool Sports, combat sports end of it. He was like, "This is the best crowd I've ever been at for a fight." I guess it was like a real fun, intense crowd.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt the same way. I said that same thing when I was at a Jake Paul fight.
Oh,
when,
yeah.
he fought Tyrone Woodley. I was like, it felt like a party.
Yeah.
It was a different vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said that, I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a totally different
Like a cool
vibe.
place
it's
to
like
hang
a cool
out.
place to hang out. Like everyone's dressed up. It's like a totally different vibe. And this fight was probably not even like the one I was at. 'Cause
Right.
Jake Paul himself didn't fight.
This was
But
more
just
like
that
boxers.
Yeah. But I think that environment that he creates is
Mm-hmm.
is pretty,
Him hype.
pretty
Yeah,
fun.
he's obviously been hyping it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we had a couple
So bummed out that Amanda Seriano left me on red.
well, you asked to spar her, right?
For like 5 years, I've been
Oh,
asking
yeah.
her to spar, and she always
And she's fought MMA.
yeah, she's
She talks about fighting MMA still.
yeah. And then I remember when she's fighting MMA, she would like make posts saying like, "Oh, I only spar guys because there's no girl." I'm like, hey, there's a bunch of girls I would love because I wouldn't even want to train MMA with her. I would just want to do boxing. Like she's so good. And I remember
Right.
like when the last time I reached out was before I fought Valentina because she's a lefty too. So I was like, oh my God, it'd be amazing. But she left me on red.
Damn.
No love for blonde fighter.
Sorry.
Right.
So we had a couple fan questions. One of them was just that, what you just mentioned, actually.
What?
It said, did you ever have someone avoid sparring you?
Well, with Amanda, I wouldn't say she avoided. I
Right.
like to say that just to make me feel better, but maybe she just was like, probably thought I was just like, I'm an MMA fighter. She doesn't need
Right.
me for boxing, but yeah, you know what's weird is like when I started, there wasn't many girls, so I really didn't have that problem. I think if there was girls, they kind of all sparred, and I kind of knew like if a girl came to spar, and I was like, all right, I know I'm better than her, and I need a consistent girl spar. So I'm not gonna like fuck her up. If I know she's never gonna come back again, then I'll just go as hard as I possibly can.
Right.
And you pretty much know that right away, which that doesn't happen very often. So you know what I mean? Usually,
But if someone's like, oh, I'm in town for the week, I would like to spar you. then
yeah.
you're
I mean,
fucking-
it depends. I get the vibe if they're like cool, and I kind of like. I don't go out to try to kill someone in sparring.
Right.
Probably should do it more, but
Well, they say that, well, don't break your toys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you break all your sparring partners, then you don't have anyone to spar.
Right.
So you have to have a little balance.
Yeah,
in
of
how hard
course.
you
And
go.
especially with girls like not having, that many, it's tough. But yeah, recent, and I never had that issue till like recently. Yeah, like me and Sarge just can't get girls. We get like kicked out of training because girls don't want to train with us anymore. So
Yeah, like so you definitely have had people avoid sparring you, but luckily you have
it does, I
Sarge
don't need.
forever.
Yeah,
you
me
know?
and Sarge just do it forever. So it's like, I mean, I get it. And I want to criticize it right away and say like, you're such like a wuss. Like, why would you like, and I get mad because I know I'm like missing out. I want to train with other girls, but and I always think of it like, how are you going to get better if you don't train with other good people? Like we always talk about, you got to train with people you're better than, you're competitive with, and people that are better than you. Got to have a mix of it. And I really learned that from training at Henzo's and jiu-jitsu, where you go on the mat and there's 60, 70 people and you don't know who they are. You kind of get over that. And I also got over that when I would go to boxing gyms to spar. Because when you go into a boxing gym,
that's like a fight.
It's a fight. They don't, to you or to them, they're like, oh, this MMA girl's coming in. They're going. They don't care if you come back. They don't want you to come back. So between those two, I got over it. And I just know that makes you better. So for like, especially for MMA sparring, I'm like, MMA sparring, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever it is. I'm like, if there's other girls, I'm like, why are you not like, unless someone's like a straight like asshole and is like trying to like hurt you.
Right.
But to avoid like training with someone because you think maybe you don't like, you have an ego, or maybe you think you're going to fight each other. Worry about that when it happens, because a fight is totally different.
Yeah.
But some people, I always think you gotta.
You'd probably spar the girl you're fighting this weekend.
Yeah.
Like tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll perform. I'm going to perform better.
Yeah, I would love. Yeah, I'll spar if I'm fighting someone.
Like you would spar Amanda Rebus like tomorrow.
Absolutely. I would love
before.
that.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Right.
But other people, but I have to like understand that some people, and this is hard for me, I'm always like, no, the way I train and the way I think is how it's done. And
no, everyone's different.
Everyone's totally different, and it's just a personality thing. Some things are good for me might not be good for you, or vice versa. But I just like, I don't know. Just like, you just get so much better if you train with more, if you have more training partners.
Yeah, of course.
You help each other get better, but not everyone thinks that way.
So another question we had for you was, how do you stay motivated? Does the belt have anything to do with it?
No, I mean, obviously like the belt, like the goal is always to be like the best at whatever I do. So yeah, for sure the belt is there, but even if, I don't know, even if like it wasn't a belt, like just keep fighting and winning, I think
it's just like your legacy, right?
Yeah.
Like having a lot of wins and not a lot of losses.
And just having like, oh, remember in this fight I did this or this, and like just training for it and getting better. And like, I mean, if no one saw the fights or knew about the fights, I would still do it.
Right.
So obviously I'm getting like paid for it too. So that helps too.
Well, I would think that the motivation is the fact that if you win your fight, you make more than 100% more than if you lost your fight, because you get double. You get your show money, and then you get double that as a win bonus. But then your next fight, it goes up if you win. Yeah. So it's more than double.
Yeah.
If you lose, like that's completely different. More than double. Mm-hmm. So that's a big motivator.
Yeah, that's a motivation. But like, I don't know, if I didn't get paid, I feel like I maybe would still do it. I would just have to I probably wouldn't be able to train as much. I would have another job, but I would still like train at night and try to do it.
Yeah.
Cause like, so the thing for motivation, it's like, I don't know, that's kind of lame. I'm like, if you need motivation,
right.
If you need motivation, it just isn't for you. You should obviously sometimes you might go like on your like training journey, you're going to go through times where you're like more motivated than others, but overall, like the average of the year, you got to be motivated.
It should be what you want to be.
It should be what you want to do. If not, then you don't have to do it. Like,
yeah, you're right about that.
I don't know. If you have to have someone motivate you, then just pick a different activity.
Yeah,
It's
do
not
something
yours,
else.
you know?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't really think, and like I said, there are times where I'm like, I'm just not really into this right now. Like, but
You have to. It's like you think of it as your job. Like your job today
Yeah.
was to drive to South Jersey and
yeah,
hit pads and spar and lift and then drive home.
yeah,
That was
I'm-
your job today, whether
yeah.
you wanted to or not.
yeah. I mean, I could like,
Motivation has nothing to do with it.
I could spar here, but I drove, 2.5 hours there, 2.5 hours back, because that's better. But I don't complain about that because, I mean, there's a lot of other people who had 2-hour commute to work today to
Yeah,
do
of
something
course.
they hate. So it's like so silly to even complain about it. But yeah, I don't know.
Motivation's not that important. Then you
No, I don't ever like think about motivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of like I said.
You
Sometimes
just always try your best.
yeah, sometimes
Motivated or not.
yeah, sometimes you go through periods where you're not as into it, or you're not like. But I think you take the average of like the whole year.
Yeah. I think that's good. Anything else? We got anything else, Zane?
Nope.
So we picked up some decent subscribers. So if you're still watching,
So
I should say
Daddy's
this at
happy.
the beginning. Help Zane keep his job.
And
subscribe.
help me keep the big guy happy over here.
Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It seems like it's starting to get a little following, and we appreciate that.
We got one more episode before the fight.
One more episode before the fight.
I'm not into superstitions or like whatever. I don't know what the word is, but since we started the podcast, I haven't lost a fight.
Damn,
Just throwing it out there.
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Did you know that?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Burning the boats. All right. Thanks for listening.
Bye, guys.